Még egyszer üdvözlök mindenkit. Hello and welcome to LogMeIn Labs. We are happy to support the cause behind OWASP and participate in this talk about security of Internet of Things. So, are you afraid of flying? Yeah, I think so. I'm Attila Török, manager of security engineering at LogMeIn and security architect at Xively, our IoT security platform. And I did afraid of flying, but not anymore. I tell you why. Have you ever seen a cockpit from the inside? How can even anybody can start this thing? And it wasn't even that complicated back in October 30, 1935, when Boeing submitted the Model 299 for US Army aircraft evaluations. During the test flight, the aircraft made a normal taxi and a takeoff, and it was beginning a smooth climb. But then suddenly it stalled, it turned in one wing and fell and burst into flames upon impact and killing 2 of the 5 crew members. The test pilot, unfamiliar with the aircraft, had neglected to release the elevator lock prior to takeoff. Some newspapers had dubbed it as too much plane for one man to fly. The pilot sat down and put their heads together. What was needed was some kind of way making sure that everything was done, that nothing was overlooked. Because the Model 299 wasn't too much airplane for one man to fly, it was simply too complex for any one man's memory. What was resulted is a pilot's checklist. Actually, 4 checklists have been developed, one for takeoff, one for in-flight, one before landing, and one after landing. These checklists for the pilot and co-pilot made sure that nothing was overlooked. And the idea of this pilot's checklist caught on. Other checklists were developed for other crew members, and checklists were developed for other aircraft in the Air Corps inventory. And eventually, it became a standard for commercial aviation. Knowing that pilots make sure that they don't forget anything makes me comfortable with flying. And who's not afraid of software vulnerabilities? I really do. Because number of airplane accidents decreased to 1,000th of what it was in 1945, while number of computer security threats shows the opposite. There has been more than 10,000-fold increase in the number of digital threats since 2003, just the last 12 years. And it's not likely to change anytime soon. So what you need to put your stuff online, you need a platform, a good platform. But define good. A good platform is reliable. Yeah, that's nice to have. A good platform is cheap. Yeah, maybe. A good platform is packed with full of features. Yeah, that's a must-have. And a good platform has good customer support. Anything else? Do you even consider whether it's secure or not? Hope so. You can ask, what's all the fuss about security? It's because everyday IoT devices packed with alarming number of vulnerabilities, as you can see in these previous presentations. Research reports, for example, by HP, testing various IoT devices commonly interconnected with our homes and businesses, revealed a plethora of vulnerabilities. 90% of devices collected personal information, 60% of devices using weak credentials, 70% of devices used unencrypted network services, and 80% of devices enabled an attacker to identify and steal valid user data. This report is showing 10 of the most popular devices in each of the most common IoT classes such as smart TVs, webcams, home thermostats, remote power outlets, sprinkler controllers even, door locks, home alarms, and garage door openers, just to name a few. And most of these issues could be addressed by the IoT platform itself that your device relies on. So what can you do? How to tell it's safe and secure to fly your device from that platform? It's not straightforward. Security, more often than not, is an afterthought. For example, once airborne, the co-pilot of that Boeing 299 realized what was happening and he tried to reach the lock handle, but it was too late. This is the case for software security patches. It is often too late. Remember, how pilots can tell whether it's secure to take off? They use a checklist. If it works for airplanes, it might work for selecting an IoT platform. We at LogMeIn Xively created a checklist for ourselves containing more than 200 items. We go over with the checklist with our customers and make sure we don't slip over anything. But what type of questions should you ask to help you forecast potential threat? To find this out, let's skydive into the most fascinating area of security, my personal favorite, threat modeling. But what's a threat? Basically, it's a potential event that causes damage. It's as simple as that. It is something that may or may not happen, but has the potential to cause serious damage. Threat modeling is a security analysis to determine the most important security risks to a system. So neglecting to release the elevator lock prior to takeoff is a threat. And when these pilots, some 8 years ago, created their first checklist, they went over all these threats they can figure out. They did a threat modeling. Again, threat is a potential event that causes damage. Threat modeling is an analysis to determine threats. So the goal is to reduce the possibility of those events to an acceptable level by determining threats. You begin threat modeling by focusing 4 key questions. What do you want to model? That's a diagram. What can go wrong by identifying threats? What should you do about those things that can go wrong by mitigating them? And last, you ask that, did you do a decent job of analysis by validation? So the first step is to draw a whiteboard diagram of your component. The next step is identifying threats to the design. The third phase is mitigation. What should you do about those things that can go wrong? A possible result is a checklist for the pilots to make sure that nothing was forgotten. The last step of threat modeling process is validation. The objective of this step is to help ensure that threat models accurately reflect design and potential threats. In the steps, you check if you did a decent job of analysis. You ask this: is this threat model complete and accurate? So, did I do something with each unique threat I found? Did I write something with each threat? So again, threat modeling is a process to understand security threats to a system, determining risk for those threats, and establishing appropriate mitigations. This process is broken into 4 major steps: diagramming, threat enumeration, mitigation, and validation. If you do all these 4 steps, you are done. Or are you? Let me tell you another story about the Gimli glider I read not too long ago in the TAO Security blog. A commercial airliner isn't supposed to run out of fuel at 41,000 feet, right? There are too many safeguards, redundant systems, too many regulations and checklists. So when that happened to Captain Bob Pearson on 1983, flying a twin-engine Boeing 767 with 61 passengers, he didn't have any standard they can rely on, any standard procedure that he can rely on. So when the cockpit warning sound emitted a sound that he or his first officer had never heard before, they were kind of shocked, because it meant that both engines had failed. Even if Pearson did manage to come for a landing, he didn't have any way to slow the airplane down. None of the procedures of the flight checklist covered this situation. Somehow, he had to fly the plane. The first officer suggested a former Royal Canadian Air Force base not too far away in a little city called Gimli. Pearson knew that the airplane was coming too high and too fast. Luckily, he was a skilled glider pilot. But, you know, airlines aren't designed to glide very well. They're too heavy, their wings are too short, and they cannot take advantage of thermal currents. So in desperation, he tried to maneuver called a slide slip. You know, it's by skidding the airplane forward in a way that ice skaters do when they want to stop. So pilots use this maneuvering with gliders, but it's never been tried with a commercial jet. So this slide slip maneuver has Pearson's only hope, and it worked. All passengers and crew members were safe. The plane was repaired at Gimli, and it returned to the Air Canada fleet for another 25 years. And it was affectionately called the Gimli glider. The story had a reasonably happy ending, but a mysterious beginning. How had the plane run out of fuel? To cut the long story short, safety features built into these instruments had caused the breakdown. Sophisticated airplane monitors fuel very carefully. This plane has two parallel systems that is just to be safe, so when one breaks down, the other functions as a backup. And investigation later found that a small drop of solder caused a partial connection between the two systems. And because of that partial connection, the computer couldn't decide which one is up, so it gave up and shut down the whole system. So thus the plane cannot tell that how many fuel it has when it was filling down the ground. So thus the plane took off with not enough fuel, and everything went well until it ran out of gas, and the both engines had stopped. Although in 1983, at the time of the Gimli glider, checklists exist for almost 50 years, there were no entries in the in-flight checklist for situations when the fuel ran out at 41,000 feet. So we cannot stop with the first version of our checklist, or let's call it threat model. We have to revisit and change it time to time. Approaching the destination of our flight, so to speak, let's circle back to our IoT platform checklist. What type of questions should you ask to help you forecast potential threat? You need to focus on these threat categories: pretending to be something or someone else, also known as spoofing; modifying something not supposed to be modified. It can be packets on the wire or in the air; bits in disk or bits in memory, preventing something from providing service, including crashing it, making it unusually slow, or filling all its storage, aka denial of service, exposing information to people who are not authorized to see it. What technical and administrative controls present in that platform to protect you from these threat categories? To cover all, you need to start asking questions. Questions starting with, does this platform protect against? For example, does this platform protect against creating fake devices? Does this platform protect against generating fake telemetry data? Does this platform protect against gaining device or end-user credentials? And 2,000 more. So let's see a few from the most important questions, such as, does this platform protect against unauthorized access? Let me give you an example of that. In 2013, a couple in Houston heard a stranger talking to their 2-year-old daughter through the baby monitor. Or in February this year, a 3-letter German car maker, starts with a B, issued a fix to their connected device software, connected drive software that allowed attackers to open car doors and remotely start car engines by their phones. Does this platform protect against unauthorized data modification? In a study spanning 2 years, found drug infusion pumps for delivering morphine drips, chemotherapy, and antibiotics, or even insulin, that can be remotely manipulated to change the dosage doled out to patients. Or there were Bluetooth-enabled implanted defibrillators that can be manipulated to deliver random shocks to the patient heart, or prevent medically needed shock from happening. Does this platform protect against eavesdropping data? A smart TV was hacked using a cheap antenna and relying on an insecurity in the hybrid broadcast broadband television standard. This standard is now features on millions of internet-connected TVs. And the so-called red button attack allows a hacker to intercept the sound, the picture, and accompanying data sent by the broadcaster, and then could take over apps on TV or even launch an attack from across the internet. And my other favorite, that has been mentioned before, the well-known manufacturer's privacy policy, which read, please be aware that if your spoken words include personal or other sensitive information, that information will be among the data captured and transmitted to a third party through your use of voice recognition. Thank you very much for spying on me. Does this platform protect against losing devices availability? There were X-ray devices in some cases that could be blue-screened and restart or wipe out the configuration settings, allowing an attacker to take critical equipment down during an emergency, or just crush all the testing equipment in the lab and reset the configuration back to defaults. So instead of hoping we don't forget an important threat, by using this method, this checklist or threat modeling method, we made sure we go over all potential threats. Pretending to be something, modifying something, prevent from providing service, and exposing information. So when you doing your threat modeling process to understand security threats to your system, focus on these threat categories and write down your findings into a checklist to avoid unpleasant surprises. And before the takeoff of your next big thing, go over your checklist and have a safe flight. Thank you very much.